Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 3 of the Let's Learn Master of Puppets guitar series. Today we will be uncovering the mystery of a shadowy creature who lurks deep beneath the sea and under the ground. But is this a physical creature or more of an essence, a dark shadowy essence that resides deep within the darkest corners of our unconscious minds? So come forth as we uncover every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression in a full, detailed musical and psychological analysis of The Thing That Should Not Be by Metallica. This is gonna get scary. The Thing That Should Not Be is quite possibly the heaviest and most cryptic song in Metallica's catalog. Heavy in the sense that the entire thing is tuned a whole step down, allowing us to dig deep into the lowest chugs up until this point. And cryptic in the sense of its lyrics and constantly shifting key centers, leaving us with chromatic melodies that plunge our minds into obscurity. The lyrics reflect a clear line of inspiration derived from the one and only H.P. Lovecraft, one of the greatest writers of all time, giving us a feeling of darkness and foreboding, hitherto unseen even by history's most notorious villains. They seem to indicate that this might be the true spiritual successor to the Call of Cthulhu from the band's 1984 release Ride the Lightning. Now I know. Everybody says that the real progression is the Call of Cthulhu, Orion, To Live Is To Die. They're all instrumentals after all. But that's far too simplistic of an approach for this particular case. We can't capture the true depth and meaning of what's going on if that's the case. So with that said, I'm going to be throwing Occam's razor right in the trash, right along with that Bic that I broke in the bathroom when I was shaving my chest. Enough talk! Let's get into some action with this ominous and eerie guitar intro. Like I said earlier, we're going to be in D standard tuning, so get those tuning pegs twisted a whole step down and put a nice warbly chorus on to give it some color. Now, even though everything is going to sound a whole step down, I'm still going to refer to all the positions as they would be on the guitar, so not concert pitch. We start off with 2 power chords ominously being held out, an E to an F sharp, which is going to sound like this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to make sure you're leaving all of that space in between to give it the proper effect. It's about 2 measures long at that point. One of the ironic things about this is that we're still centered in the key of E minor, which is completely typical of Metallica at this point in the game. The only difference is we couldn't hit that low D at the bottom, right? We were kind of limited to our standard tuning at that point. So now we have that lower range to get into that E. After doing those chords twice, we hit into what will become the main progression of the song that's repeated all throughout its length. So we actually come in with this. We do the same 2 power chords. This is a highly intervallic riff as everything is rooted on that note F sharp on the bottom. We have an F sharp and a C, which is a tritone. We have an F sharp and a C sharp, which is a perfect 5th. We have an F sharp and a D, which is a flatted 6th. Now, it's no secret that the tritone is one of the most diabolical and unsettling intervals that you can possibly play of all time. Now, to pair that with the flatted 6th, which is one of the most tense intervals of all time, is simply barbaric. The previous track, Master of Puppets, uses these same intervals in what I refer to as the Phrygian James Bond riff. I'm sure you've heard it. Sounds familiar, right? The thing is, that song does not accent the same intervals like this does, okay? That's more centered around the key of E, which would be more like a natural 6 to flat 6, 5, flat 6, natural 6, flat 6. When in this case, we're centered more on that F. So that would be like this. So if we just shift it up to the key now, those are are all the intervals while playing the James Bond theme. This is like a demented James Bond theme. It's completely different, completely erratic, completely chaotic, and will destroy your soul if you play it for too long. This demented James Bond riff is sure to cause us some extreme discomfort and unwanted bowel movements while we search for the golden gun. Now let's get into the heavy version of that same idea, quite possibly the heaviest riff you'll ever hear. We achieve this sound by adding a little extra chromaticism at the beginning of the riff. We have all the same rhythmic ideas happening here, but we have an extra F sharp on the chug there. Beat 1, watch. 1 and D, D. Got that double D at the end too. Just like that. So basically all the same stuff that we just played before on the clean guitar, but on a dirty guitar. Let's play it real slow, ready? Dig into it real hard, slow motion. After that plays 4 times, we go into the next riff, which just adds extra notes to the same idea, like this. This riff is like a browser extension for a Metallica riff. We add some extra chugs just before beats 2 and 4. You hear that? This helps us to accentuate the snare drum rhythm, which is being played on beats 2 and 4. Would you look at that? The addition of these chugs also adds an odd and disjointed movement between these chords. We have F going to F sharp and then down to E, like this. That's pretty weird, right? We have a half step from F to F sharp and then a whole step going down to E. And this whole riff is basically an F sharp, so we have the major 7th and then the flat 7. This sound is highly characteristic of the Master of Puppets album so far. So let's play that slowly. So we're only playing this same iteration 2 times, but since it's so similar to the other idea, we're basically doing the same thing 6 times over to really reinforce and milk this for everything it's worth. So after those 2 dirty intro riffs, we head into what will later become the pre-chorus riff, but this is a more brief version of that, so check this out. This riff uses a very disjunct series of chords, which alternates between the perfect 5th power chord on the bottom and its inverted counterpart on top, which is actually a perfect 4th, a minor 3rd higher. We start off on a B power chord going 1 and 2 and bam, bam. You see how we're going between 2 different chords within one chord? It's a B and a D played basically at the same time. So when we do that, we actually get a B minor 7th chord, okay? The power chord is the root in the 5th. This, the 7th fret, is actually the flatted 7th, and this would be the minor 3rd of a B minor chord. So, all together, and technically you want to play it as almost like a bar. You want to use your pointer to grab that while you go back and forth with the pinky. So watch. Going right before that. Then we head right down to G. Then to G sharp. And then that rhythm on F. So let's hear that again. We got B, B flat to G, B to G sharp, and then an A flat to an F, creating all minor 7th chords throughout this sequence. So the top chord is like a Judas Priest idea, and the bottom chord is like satanic death. Overall, the erratic nature of these chord changes serves to paint the perfect picture of an obscure force plaguing the minds of millions without their knowledge or consent. Coming out of the pre-chorus Foreshadow, we hit the setup to verse number 1, which is basically the same 2 chords we played at the very beginning, but with distortion, just like this. We're coming in with E to F sharp, just letting it fade out to the distance. We're on the top of a mountain, surrounded by clouds and dust and all sorts of obscuring stuff. Now, there isn't much to say about that part except just play the chords right, alright? But there is something to say about what Lars is playing during this section. Check this out. This doubled up halftime feel gives us a nice breakdown from the 2 previous sections by decreasing the frequency by which the snare drum is being played. The first riff has it on 2 and 4. The second riff has it only on beat 3. And this riff has it just kind of wherever it wants, but with no real clear idea of where that snare is going to hit. Lars is just kind of going for it the entire time, but it's less frequent. That's the entire idea. The rest of the verse plays just like the intro, but it's half the length. It's also on the clean channel as well, so we go E to F sharp. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Check it out. Moving line. So each of those parts only goes 1 time instead of twice like it's set up in the introduction. And of course, there's lyrics on top as well. There's a leftover dirty guitar that continues to play throughout this entire part to add a little extra color to it. We're going like this, holding that out nice, and then palm muting all those intervals. And then right into our favorite riff, NastyTown, which goes like this. This is NastyTown. Dirty riff number 1. We do it twice. And then we're back into it again, right? Here we go. Palm mute that. And we basically go through that 2 times through, so let's hear both guitars together at this point. The way that this goes gives us a great dynamic contrast between the 2 different riffs, the clean and the dirty riff. And it basically gives James Hetfield's vocal a nice amount of breathing room up top when the dynamic comes down. Notice how when the clean guitar is playing, he's singing, and then when it starts to build up, he's still singing, but when that massive dirty riff comes in, James Hetfield is swallowed up by this dark force and is not allowed to sing ever again. Upon completing that cycle twice, we hit the real pre-chorus of the song, which is the same riff as before, but it goes through 2 times total. We start out on the B. Fearless wretch, insanity, he watches lurking beneath the sea. Great old one, forbidden sight, he searches, hunter of the shadows is. And that's actually where the pre-chorus ends, because the chorus begins on rising, but we're not going to get there yet. There's nothing more to say about the guitar part, but let's check out the vocal melody during this section.
Fearless wretch, insanity, he watches lurking beneath the sea.
The entire sequence moves up chromatically, beginning on a concert E, which in guitar land is now F sharp. The first note that's sung is the perfect 5th of the B chord, so fearless wretch, and then to the root note of the G chord, insanity, to the root note of the G sharp, he watches, and then here, lurking, that's the major 3rd of an F chord going to the root, beneath the C, and then it just starts over again. So really, the pattern is like this. To then return a half step back. So we have this motion. That sounds really, really, really weird, doesn't it? Now hold the phone. The guitar is playing an inverted A flat power chord like this, and then going to the F natural, but the vocal is singing an A natural on the top. How could this be possible? The easy explanation is that it just sounds good because most of this chord is riding on the F, which leaves plenty of room for the A natural on top. However, we still need to account for the fact that this is indeed an F minor 7. The hard explanation is that this is a sharp 9 idea flipped completely on its head. The sharp 9 chord is known as the Jimi Hendrix chord, famously played in Purple Haze. You've heard it before. Now, a sharp 9 chord has both a major and a minor third within its walls. The only thing separating the two is the semantic distinction between a sharp 9 and a flatted third. Usually people handle the sharp 9 by adding the minor third or the sharp 9th on the top, right? Creating this nice crunchy sound. You see that? I have the sharp 9 or the minor third up at the very top and the major third down at the bottom, giving it this nice crunch. But here we're flipping this idea completely around, putting the minor third on the bottom and the major third on the top, which gives us this sound. Yuck, that sounds absolutely terrible. So we set out to find the thing that should not be, and I'm pretty sure we found it. Sounds like crap. Who knew that such an advanced demonic energy would have such terrible taste? Let's move on. After the pre-chorus section, we're greeted with 2 half notes, which represents the rising of the Shadow Hunter. Listen close. We begin very curiously with 2 octaves to begin the first measure. So we go B to C, and then we go into one of the most absurdly heavy riffs I've ever heard in my entire life. Check this out. Oh my God. And eventually coming back into it. Basically all we're doing is we're muting the A string and then going into this inverted 4th power chord once again, but this time on the 1st fret of the A and the D string like this. Check that out. And the riff stops right there before it moves on, but we're basically starting with an A string mute, going like this, into the 1st fret of the A and the D string, that inverted power chord. But this, that's the sound we get there. That is brutally heavy sounding, and especially during this calendar year, 1986. We then ride on the E for the rest of that next measure, bringing us back into this once again. Now the second time we come back into that, it's actually a measure of 2/4. So you want to make sure you add that in there. Let's count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Then again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. After that sequence, we do the whole thing again. But this time we end with 4 chords. That's B, C, F to B, right? Or the 5 flat 6, then the flat 2, which creates a tritone interval between the B and the F, and then we come back to return to the B. Harmonically speaking, we're playing the 7th scale degree with that E flat going to the root, which would be the E. But that's not totally the entire story. Let's check out what Cliff Burton does on the bottom. He's going to Burtonize us. Check it out. Okay, now it doesn't sound like too much, but what Cliff Burton is doing here is the reason why this riff is so incredibly heavy. An E flat chord with an E flat or the root on the bottom sounds like this, as opposed to the second inversion, which sounds like this, with the B flat on the bottom instead. It's a lot different, a lot grittier sounding. Let's compare the two again. Root position, second inversion, aha. Makes me feel like I just took a bite into a bag of rocks. After the chorus, we go back into the main dirty riffs with both variations played. The first 2 times are the original riff, right? Then double D, keep going. Then more busy, 2 times. Pretty cool. Now, basically what's happening here is we're just playing this riff 4 times instead of the original 6. I guess because in the intro we had to really drive the point home and set up that riff, so it happened a couple extra times. This time it's only going 4 times through to get us into the next verse. Verse 2 comes in exactly how it was before, so let's check out some vocal stuff while we're here.
Crawling chaos underground, cult, assault, and twisted sound.
The vocals in each verse actually follows the intervals that are played on the riff exactly how they are, before coming down to a final F sharp. But check this out, these notes are pretty high, so we're going. But the second one is sang slightly sharp if you listen to it.
Cult, assault, and twisted sound.
You hear how he's pushing just a little bit sharp on that high note? He's almost going up to the next note, which would be D on the guitar, or a concert C. That is incredibly high even for the most seasoned tenor out there. Pre-chorus 2 and chorus 2 are played exactly the same as they were before, but chorus 2 ends ever so slightly to get us into the guitar solo. Check this out. Basically what's happening is we're just holding the B out for 4 beats, which actually creates a measure of 6/4 before we get into the solo. It would actually be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then right in there. After those 4 beats, we hit into probably one of the more eccentric and unique guitar solos in Kirk Hammett's arsenal. So check it out. Guitar underneath the solo goes through the same chorus chugs that we heard before, but without the half note octaves in between. So check it out. 2, 3, 4. Such a demonically heavy riff. We go through 4 times total. Man, this is insane. I want to play it all day. But we can't. We have a solo to learn. The first lick starts off with a very erratic series of pull-offs, utilizing the depressed whammy as you're going through it, just like this. Now you basically have to make sure you're playing this part, this pull-off between the 17th and the 14th. We're doing a trill, a repetitive pull-off over and over again, just like this. 2, 3, 4, for a total of 15 times. Until you finally release that, and then do this. And you want to really add a lot of whammy bar jizz and a serious bend on that last note, which is a whole step bend on the 18th fret. I'll play it one more time slowly for you. Watch. Woo! The next lick is a repetitive 3-note line that utilizes the E Phrygian dominant scale. The notes are G sharp at the 16th fret of the high E, F on the 13th, and E on the 12th. That gives us the major third, the flatted second, and the root, giving us that Phrygian dominant sound. Now we have to pick through each of these notes, okay? A series 12 times. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that, okay? Did you catch that? Let's do it slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just blast through it with tremolo picking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we hit this last final bend. Just like that, right on the 15th fret, whole step, and then releasing it. That's like a little bluesy element at the end there. The next portion of the solo honestly deserves its own video, but I'll try to keep the explanation condensed for right now. I'll play it for you first. Ready? Sounds pretty cool enough, right? Let's go over the positions first. We're on the 12th fret, hammering into the 13th on the G string. Ready? And then we're going with that half-step motion on the B string, but this time on 11 and 12. Climbing up, 11, 12 on the E. A hammer pull. back down like this, and then hitting this pattern on the way down. We're actually going to go 14 to 13, 14, 13, and then ending with this really ominous type of ending. Look at this. 11, 12, 11, 12. That's some spooky stuff, let me tell you. Now, to my complete and utter surprise, these are not just random notes that Kirk Hammett just pulled out of his butthole. He basically is doing a real scale that you'd probably find in a guitar grimoire book by flipping to a random page and just saying, that's the weirdest scale I can play, let me try learning it. The scale is called the double harmonic scale, or better yet, we can call it the Byzantine scale, which sounds a lot cooler and a lot more dominant, sort of like the Byzantine Empire, right? And basically it's rooted on E flat. Yes, that's right. Even though a lot of the chugs, well, most of the chugs are on E, it does make sense because we have an E flat just before it happens. So we do have to account for that at some point. But this is an E flat and or D sharp Byzantine scale. The notes that make up this scale are the root note, the flatted second, the major third, the fourth, the perfect fifth, the flatted sixth, the major seven, and then the E flat on the top for the root again. So that's E flat, F flat, that's right, F flat is a real thing, don't even get me started, G, A flat, B flat, C flat, which is also a real thing, don't make me continue getting started, and then up to a D natural, right up to E flat. So that's a pretty cool sounding scale if you ask me. Now, how on earth did Kirk Hammett, in the middle of the 1980s with probably some questionable substances being put into his body, decide to use this mode of all modes, the Byzantine Catholic Empire mode? Why on earth did he do it? Well, guess what? The explanation is quite simple. Take a listen to this and I'll meet you on the other side. Yep, it's that simple. The Byzantine scale is used in Dick Dale's surf rock classic, Miser Lou. Check it out. Well, that's kind of cool. So Kirk Hammett just thought that sounded awesome, and he wanted to use that scale in some way, shape, or form in one of these songs. It just happens to be this one, the thing that should not be. It's very odd, the choice. I guess he wanted to take the Hang 10 and combine it with the Dark Consciousness. Let me play the actual lick from the solo one more time slowly, and we can bask in and appreciate the fact that this is indeed the Byzantine scale. Check it out. Dick Dale would be proud. There's also a harmony part that's played on top of the lick that we just went over, so let's check that out. The articulation and half-step ideas are the same, but some of the note positions are slightly different here. So just like I said, all the rhythms are the same, articulation's the same. We're starting at the 15th fret, now going to the 16th, and then 15, 16, and then 15, 16 again. With that hammer pull coming down the same notes, just like we did on the earlier part. Now here we're going 17, 16. That's a slight change. And then 17, 16 again. And then ending right here in the same exact fashion on the 14th to the 13th. That last held out note creates a minor third harmony on top of the original part, but it sounds very ominous. Here it is played together. Almost like it has no shape or form, like it doesn't know exactly where it wants to go. Reminds me of something that maybe Dimebag Darrell would experiment with, especially on Far Beyond Driven. I must also make a big stink about one little thing. Check this out. The 17th fret to the 16th fret creates a note that doesn't exist in the Byzantine scale, Mr. Hammett. I thought we were going to be very consistent here, but apparently I can't trust you anymore. You hit an F sharp in a scale that does not have an F sharp in it. We're supposed to have an F flat and an F flat only. We have the G natural. We have every other note in the scale, right? We got the B flat, right? We got the C flat. We got the D. We got the E flat. We got a G to a G sharp, a G to an A flat. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I'll admit when I'm wrong. But we go to an F sharp. We can't do that, Kirk. What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? What are you doing to everybody who listens to your music, who's depending upon the Byzantine scale being there, the double harmonic scale? It's so cool. You did it once, why couldn't you do it again, Kirk? Answer me that question. You probably won't answer that question, but that's fine. It's actually not fine, but I guess we gotta move on to the next section. This last section of the solo brings back a lot of that erratic whammy bar nonsense. We start off on the open G with a nice dive bomb all the way down, and then we come up to that E Phrygian dominant pattern, 16, 13, 12 again, and we're going to play that 9 times like this while depressing the bar, and then we're going to end it with a bend on the 13th fret of the B string like this, but while we press up on the bar. So look, we have it depressed, and then a pull off into the 10th fret, and then we're going to whammy it until we die. Let me play that through for you. You see how that whammy nonsense just sucks? Let me play that slow one more time. Whoa, we're diving down, and then we have our 9 times. I got shot 9 times. Remember that guy 50 Cent? I have to say that I absolutely hated learning this solo because of all the whammy bar wankery, but that Byzantine scale and the Dick Dale type of idea really saved it for me, so thanks Kirk Hammett for not making my life a total frickin' hell. The next part is a little transition riff that is unique to this section, and then part of it is brought back a little later as well, but only in its partial form. It happens right after the last time through the solo. We still play a measure of 2/4 with this, but then head right into the riff. So let me play the riff after that too. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let me go over those first 2. We actually go right into the 2nd fret of the A and the D string instead of the 1st. So we're making a nice clean transition. 2. And then down to the 3rd fret of the low E, which is G, A, B, then C with a 16th note, down to G, C, B. Let me play that one more time. Pretty cool. We then repeat that, but we hit a different note at the peak. So look at this. That's the open D string, so we're actually going up a whole step higher than we did before. One more time. Pretty cool. And the last one happens after we're interrupted again by those half notes, a la the chorus 1 and 2. Look, B, C, and then we hit in with the final one. And we peak the highest on this one, watch. E, E. Always going between the same notes every single time. So let me play the entire part for you. First one, C. Second, D, B, C. High peak. And then here, James comes back in for this part. And we do all 4 of those to get back into the main riff number 2. Now that's kind of cool how that goes there. It's actually a partial rehash of the chorus. Now bringing that chorus back doesn't make it seem repetitive because we're only playing a very small portion of it, which I think is a very cool compositional tool. After that tiny chorus rehash, we go back to heavy riff number 2, this one. Right? I love this riff. But this time, the drums are a little bit different. They're much slower, and Lars is refraining from playing on beats 2 and 4. He's now playing a halftime on beat 3. The snare's only on beat 3. And there is an ambient delay guitar happening behind this as well. So let's hear what those guitars sound like together. Is obviously the same, so I won't waste any time talking about that. But that delay guitar, you basically just want a lot of whammy bar and a lot of bends, and make sure you put your whammy bar in first, right? So you can actually do the whammying. And you want to do a really, really aggressive whammy bar type thing. Maybe some lower bends, come up a little higher, just like that. Remember, lots of delay. Then come up real high, really super high, boom, and then the final note is going to be something like this. And that's basically resolving into the verse, oddly enough. Now it seems like Kirk Hammett's stunt during the guitar solo, the hang 10 stunt, is starting to seriously backfire on us. The waters are rising, and the tsunami coming from the sea is ready to annihilate everyone and everything. Thanks, Kirk Hammett, for destroying the entire planet. Now that's some scary stuff, but it appears as if the waters are beginning to subside as we come back into verse 3, because everything is pretty much the same, except it appears the acoustic guitar makes an appearance in this last verse. Check out this timbre. A nice little production move by Mr. Flemming Rasmussen, Metallica's producer at the time. Beyond verse 3, we hit pre-chorus 3 and chorus 3, which are exactly identical. However, at the end of chorus 3, we have to bring back that little transition riff, but a condensed version. That should sound pretty familiar. It's the exact same transition as before, but it's only the third one that happens. Remember we had the... and this one? We don't play either of those at all. We just play the third one. And then we immediately go back into the E flat to chugging, right? This is why Metallica is so good, because they are masters of transitions. It's unbelievable. All they had to do was just add the third part of that unique transition this time around to keep the song interesting. Awesome, and it works perfectly. Ready? Right in there. It's like it doesn't even matter. And of course we ride that riff all the way to the end of the song, but we have another little guitar that comes in right at the end. We're not quite done. Check this out. That's right, it's a guitar overdub, but instead of actually playing something, we're doing pick scrapes. Just like that, in eighth notes. Make sure you have an auto pan effect if you can. Nobody really has that, but there is an auto pan on it, slowly bringing it from the left speaker to the right speaker, just like that, just like we're on the open seas waiting for the dark consciousness to swallow our entire bodies. But we're not going to allow it because we have these pick scrapes to ward off the evil spirits. Check it out. Now if you notice, depending on where you're scraping, and I can't believe I'm actually going to give a tutorial on this, you're going to change the tempo. The closer to the bridge you are, the higher the sound gets. And the further from the bridge you get, the lower the sound gets. So you basically want to pick a nice spot, karate chop right to the center of the earth, and then just go back and forth. The auto panner will take care of the rest. Or if you have Flemming Rasmussen's contact information, you can call him up, and he can put you through an auto panner, and he'll get you through the rest of this song no problem. Now that's pretty cool. Alright everybody, thank you so much for coming along this journey, the thing that should not be. It was a fun one, it was a Lovecraftian one, and it was quite wonderful having you with me this entire time. Now, if you'd like to further support the channel, go to www.subscribestar.com/RomanOva Music. You can become a patron, a monthly patron, to ensure that I can keep making these videos. Every little bit of support helps, even $1 or $5. I also have a $20 option. $20 a month gets you access to my RomanOva Guitar Gym videos. Those are exclusive to that tier of patron only. Okay, so $20 a month. I got a couple of them rolled out already, and you'll have access to every single one as I increasingly make more. See, I almost messed up there and had to recut this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep that in there. You could also do a one-time donation on my PayPal tip jar, so it's like leaving a tip. Like if you see a band playing in the middle of the woods, you'll leave them a tip. You'll leave them a dead possum or a squirrel so they can eat it for dinner later on. You can also book lessons on my site as well, www.romanovamusic.com. If you're interested in personal, private training, then you can get in contact directly with me through there. Just hit the big red button. Alright everybody, we encountered the thing that shouldn't be, and next time we're going to reap what we've sown. We're going to be thrown into the loony bin for the next song. which is Welcome Home. And our home is going to be